Now, I'm joined by Bob Lyddon. He's an independent financial advisor with huge experience in the field of banking, written many reports on it. Bob, to begin with, I was fascinated to see what you wrote about the status of politically exposed persons and just how many people were in that category.
Yes. I mean, it's thousands, isn't it? It's 90,000.
Yeah.
This hasn't gone mad, and then on the other hand, you have countries who can give out their lists, which have got 50 people or something, and they would, because those are the countries that should be coming under heavy scrutiny. So it's become an industry in itself and fed from a data vendor, usually just the one, who, if they're charging $100,000 a year or a month, they have to produce fat lists, don't they? They can't produce a zero list with just blank. So it's become an industry where more and more people get tagged. Yeah. And once you're tagged, it's a black mark, very difficult to remove.
Yeah, 90,000 people, politically exposed persons, and from what I can make out, Bob, not one single case of anybody in that category being associated with money laundering at any point in the last half a century.
Well, I don't think that's necessarily fair, but you'd perhaps be talking about 5 or 6.
Okay.
We're a country which is not tagged by these global bodies, Financial Action Task Force, Moneyval, as having high incidence of grift, of people taking 10% off the top. Yeah. And yet we've got 90,000 PEPs. It's ludicrous.
Moving on, cash. 5,000 yes. bank closures around the country, a huge reluctance now for banks to take cash, either from individuals or from businesses. And we learned from the 11th of September that Natwest are going to put very strict limits on the amount of cash people can put in and take out. Are the banks trying to drive cash out of the system?
Yes, they are. What we're talking about, you don't have to read very much into things like the UN sustainability goals, all the stuff during the pandemic that cash transmitted the disease.
Yeah.
And, cash is bad for financial inclusion. Everybody's got to have a bank account. Well, hold on. Cash is extremely good for financial inclusion. What you've got is really a campaign coming. It presents itself like different heads of the Hydra. But it's kill off cash, get onto digital currencies. Everything is distributed or done through a Visa or MasterCard-like business arrangement, where there's a hell of a lot of fees, 3%, 5% off the top in every transaction.
Yeah.
They love that. That's why they want digital currency.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure once cash is removed completely, those fees will probably go up and not down. It wouldn't be too difficult to guess at that. Now, Bob, the FCA have acted today. They've given this deadline of the 25th of August to the banks. My view is they should have been doing this a long, long time ago, because this has been developing into a huge scandal for a very long time. But when I showed you earlier the statements from Sheldon Mills, the engagement of the bank with Pride and other political campaigns, I mean, what are they doing? Isn't their job to regulate financial markets?
Well, yes, but it's difficult when you have the Bank of England say the major stream of work on greening the Bank of England. You're right. It's great for management to have targets like that, because they can basically mark their own homework.
Yeah.
Say, we've achieved this, that, and the other. And yet underneath it all, what they're really supposed to be concentrating on, like inflation or bank service provision, goes to hell in a handbasket. It's brilliant. But the answer with the FCA, I mean, in my personal experience, was trying to help, really going back 5 years, a certain type of payment company not to get debanked here. And the FCA was on the other side. They were effectively saying, banks can cite commercial reasons for somebody. Yeah. They were inventing excuses for the banks not to provide service. So they've actually been on the other side of this argument for a very long time, protecting the banks against the customer.
Would you agree with me that the FCA... Bob, would you agree with me that the FCA is simply not fit for purpose?
Well, it has its various purposes and it invents them. I don't know. I mean, let's see. the timelines are very short.
Yes.
In my experience, people would, the banks would say, we've paused your application. Well, why? I need service now. They wouldn't ever say, I've rejected you. They'd delay, they'd do everything possible to say, we haven't rejected you.
Yeah.
So given that, when you ask a question, or they ask, the FCA ask, how many people have you rejected? They'll say no one. You need to go through very carefully what the FCA has said and think about how the banks can wriggle out of saying,
well,
yes.
We'll know pretty soon.
See.
We'll know pretty soon.
We will.
Whether this is
At least it isn't a 5-year process in this case.
No, unlike the COVID
That's
inquiry.
cool.
No, absolutely.
No.
Bob Lyddon, thank you very much indeed, Lyddon, for joining us
Thank
tonight
you.
on the show.